This is the Hope Not Note podcast,
where we answer your questions and share inspirational stories to fill your soul with hope.
Our mission is to empower hope to those who have been plagued by nope.
I'm Dr. Dylan Caswell.
And I'm Brandy.
And we're here to bring you out of the nope and into hope.
Welcome to the 100th episode of the Hope Not Note podcast.
Let's go.
Confetti.
Triple digits, baby.
Yeah, confetti, fireworks, balloons. Anything else?
Isn't there like a heart that comes up on the screen sometimes?
Yeah, we could put hearts on
a little
this.
heart on the screen.
Yeah. 100 episode. Can you believe it?
I cannot.
I was thinking about our first episode, and for our longtime listeners, thank you for being here for the past 2-ish years of the Hope Not Note podcast. And our first episode was just like so fun and fresh, and it was in our old place, and it was the best that we could do then, but it's cool to see how we've grown and elevated since then. So
yeah. I think doing 100 of anything can be a lot.
Yeah.
But especially a podcast and anything content creation, to get to 100, it is a milestone.
Yeah.
Many more to come, but it's a cool milestone.
Before we dive into the episode, did you celebrate the 100th day of school growing up?
Probably not.
No, so like it was a really big thing at my elementary school. And every year you would bring in like, I remember somebody brought in a styrofoam bus and had like 100 lollipops in it. So it was like just cute and like different unique things like that. There was one year where the Super Bowl was the day before, like 2 days before the 100th day of school. So during the Super Bowl, and maybe I have the memory a little off, but this is my memory, so whatever. During the Super Bowl, my mother braided my hair 100 different braids in my hair to celebrate the 100th day of school, which I thought was just crazy and cool. And mind you, I did not have a haircut until I was 14, and this is when I was like 10 maybe, and I just thought I was so cool. And they gave out a prize for like the most unique person, and I was like, how do I not win this prize? Like my hair, I've never had it cut, super long past my butt, now I have 100 braids in it, and I didn't win the prize.
Who won?
I'm pretty sure the lollipop person.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Candy always wins.
It always wins. And I really thought like I had to suffer for this. Like it is not easy getting your hair braided 100 times.
Yeah.
So. Anyways, that's my little story of the number 100.
Yeah, I feel like our mentality would have been like, yay, 100 days. We're closer to being back to summer.
Yeah.
Out of this place.
Right.
Great.
80 days left of school. Fair enough. Well, thank you everybody who is listening, and just wanted to share like, oh, it is so cool. The growth of the podcast. It has gone to so many different countries in the hands and the ears of so many different people. Every week we publish it on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and just seeing the amount of impact that it has on those places, as well as just like through our social media networks and things like that. We're so thankful for you all who are listening. So this episode is special. It's a question that I took time reflecting on what I think would serve our audience the most. And I realized that what would serve our audience the most is what has served us that we've been able to pay forward. You know what I mean? And so the question this week is a question that I've heard before on other podcasts. And so I kind of pulled it myself, but I really think it could serve our people. And the question is, what is the best piece of advice you have ever been given? Now, before you answer, I know. Before you answer, I want to ask, like, is advice the same as being educated on something? Because you can be educated, and that's like the best piece of education that's like transformed you. But is advice always education, or is education different than advice? And is advice always empowering? Because we educate and empower on this episode, but we're also giving advice in this episode specifically on advice. So the reason I ask you this is because I have a couple in my brain, but I think that one of them is kind of more education based versus advice based. But if it's the same thing, then like Double whammy, let's go.
Wow. All right. So we got a little dissection to do
I guess so.
on this. So when I hear the word advice, well, let me take it piece by piece. Is advice always empowering? No,
No.
no, because the advice, depending on how it's empowering, is who it's coming from and then who's receiving it. Like
Mm,
there's a two-way party to it. I think we can give the best advice that we've ever given, and at the same time, we could give the worst advice that
mm,
we've always been given. I think when we look at advice, it's a recommendation based on perspective.
mm,
And in order for that advice to hit, somewhere along the line, that perspective from the teacher given to the student has to match your perspective somewhat.
mm.
Because if you're getting advice from a completely different perspective that doesn't match how you see the world or how you're going to see the world, then it's not going to land.
Yeah, if it's not in line with the values that you already
Yes.
have, then it doesn't really make sense
Right.
for you to like take it and
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, and I think people are always willing to give their advice
Hmm.
on it, and then it's the is the receiver willing to receive and accept that advice, or are they not because it doesn't match their values, or because they're just kind of blinded to something.
Mm,
So is advice always education? I think the person giving the advice wants it to be education, but I don't think advice is always based on the truth.
yeah.
I think wisdom, on the other hand, typically is based on the truth. And I think when we look at wisdom and advice, they're both forms of education.
Mm,
But I think one's coming from the truth, one's coming from perspectives, and that person's perspectives may be their truth, but that doesn't always mean that it's the truth,
the capital T
the
truth.
capital T
Yeah.
truth.
Well, wisdom comes from the Lord. Like it's
Yeah,
not this thing that you can get in books.
right. Except for the Book of Wisdom.
Except for the book of wisdom. And I suppose you like I suppose the Lord can speak through the books for
Yes.
sure, but it does come back to like lowercase t versus capital T truth. And I know that as you're growing, as you're kind of discovering yourself and maybe growing in self-awareness and developing and things like that, you don't necessarily know the difference between ultimate truth and truth. And there was even a time in my life where I was a little like relativistic and I was like,
Hmm.
everyone has their own truth and that's fine. And it's like, yes, but at the same time, there is a truth to all of this. And,
Yeah.
I could go off about that because our
Yeah.
God is great, but
Yeah. I think everyone has their own experiences,
yeah.
and that's what makes humankind unique, is that we all have different experiences that light the fire on us to do different things, but the reason the fire is lit is all from the same truth, which is to serve each other and to serve a greater good.
Mm,
So I think I was thinking about this the other day too, that really like the mind is strong, right? Because we always talk on like mindset and things like that. Like the
mm,
mind itself, the mind is strong, the brain is weak,
mm,
because the mind is supposed to be unified. It's supposed to be in line with the truths that we were created with. The brain allows us to deviate from those types of truths. And I think the same can be said on this topic of like we all have different experiences, but in those experiences, the truth should be and can still be the same.
mm. So I guess is the question, what's the best piece of advice you've ever been given? Or is it what's the best wisdom you've ever been given?
Yeah, I think for me and my perspectives and
Ooh.
my experiences, they fall in line with each other.
Okay.
Because I think when I think of wisdom, I think of the thing that like makes you curious, but makes you want to learn more. Where advice is basically like the recommendation that
Mm.
that doesn't make you ponder too much. But I think the best is when it's the best of both worlds.
Yeah. I will say we've both been very blessed to have different mentors and
Mhm.
different people of wisdom in our lives throughout our entire life, whether we were kids or, young adults in college, or even now we have great resources of wisdom
Mhm.
and I'm very thankful and we're very fortunate that that is the case, that we have
Yeah.
these different people who have led us in this way. And hopefully this episode, our 100th episode, can really pay that forward and spread that to the people listening.
hmm Yeah. No, and it's so true of the surrounding yourself with good community that helps you grow, that has had different experiences and can share the different points of wisdom at different seasons in life, but are aligned with the same truth.
Hmm. So you want to answer the question then?
Best advice?
The best
All right.
advice.
So the best advice I've ever received is to always smile
Mm,
because smiles are free.
that's so nice. Aw.
And I have to say, like I had to sit on this and think about it the last few minutes that we've been talking about advice versus wisdom and all that because as Brandon was saying, I've gotten a lot of really great pieces of advice backslash wisdom, but this one really stuck out to me because of the backstory of who it came from and when I got this advice.
Tell the
So,
backstory.
so the backstory of this is that it came from my grandma and
Okay.
specifically my mom's mom. And I won't share too much about her life. She passed when she was like in her 50s, kind of a young death, but she struggled like a lot through life. She had really hard relationships. She went through a lot of different things. Um, was never well off. Was always like not even paycheck to paycheck. Like even less than that. Of just like fully going without. And I remember when she passed and we were cleaning out her trailer and just it was just like wow, this is how grandma was living. Like she didn't have much. And growing up, we got to spend some time with her. And I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, every time that we got to spend with her, she made it as special as it could be. So sometimes it'd be going out in the yard and just searching for four-leaf clovers. And somehow she would always find one.
That's impressive.
And I don't know if she actually found it or she brought one with her, but like, how do you keep two boys, my brother and myself, entertained for an hour?
Mm,
Like, hey, you have a big front yard. There's a four-leaf clover somewhere in here. Like, we got to go find
yeah.
it. And like we did that, but it was just like time together in which like no money had to be spent. It
Mm,
was just pure bonding and being in each other's presence. And I remember each time that we got to see her for Christmas, which wasn't often, she would like scrape up something
mm,
to gift us. So, she didn't come for much and just didn't have a lot of resources. And so that advice came from her of her telling us like, hey boys, like life can be tough and things can be costly, but smiles are free.
mm.
So make sure that you're always smiling. And you hear that as a kid and you're like, okay, grandma,
Yeah.
like I'll keep smiling. But then you get older and you realize like how much a smile can serve other people. And it kind of, I think as a Christian, we're called to kind of confuse the world
Mm,
a bit of like we're supposed to be frustrated. We're not supposed to be joyful. There's a lot of hard things happening in the world. Why are you smiling all the time?
yeah.
Like, what's the reason for your joy? And it's like, well, we have hope.
Mm,
And I have this amazing piece of advice that I got from my grandma who grew up in the struggle, stayed in the struggle, but made the point to say that like you can always find a reason to smile.
mm,
So smile because you smiling can change somebody's day without you ever talking to them. And we
mhm,
say all the time, like say hi when you see, but even just smiling can completely turn that person's day, week, month, year, life.
mhm.
So smile.
Yeah.
Hmm
Wow, that is so
Yeah.
sweet. I love that. As you were talking, it reminded me of the scripture, and I'm kind of blanking on where in the Bible it comes from, but it's always be prepared to give a reason for your hope.
hmm
But I think that smiling, like always be prepared to smile, allows for that invitation for the conversation if it's meant to ha be had, but
Yeah.
if it's not meant to be had, like a smile really does create an impact
Hmm.
on people, and it's kind of like a chain reaction too.
Yeah. Yeah. And I look at the work that we get to do and how much we're learning. And so many times we give credit to specific movements
Hmm.
or a specific technique. And what we forget in all this is that if a person's in pain or suffering, the first thing we need to do is bring down their sympathetic tone. Like we got to take them out of the stress state and into more of a peaceful or somewhat relaxed state. And like, how do you do that? Well, it starts with a smile,
Hmm.
like a caring smile, not a forced one where it looks like you're kind of pooping your pants a little bit, but like a real smile that just says like, hey, I know you're struggling. Like we've been through struggles too, but there's still a reason to smile. And for us, that reason to smile is because the battle's already been won. So
Yeah.
whatever you're going through, you can have that smile because you already know the ending.
Hmm.
You already know how this all folds out. So in those hard times, you can still smile, and that smile can really that's what kicks off a successful treatment plan.
Hmm.
Imagine when you sit down and the healthcare professional or doctor comes into the room and they're just like frown face, frustrated, and
Yeah.
like, okay, today's not a good day for me to heal.
Right.
Like,
Oh, that's so true. The most joyful person I think I've ever met in my entire life is a good friend of ours who um can't can't physically speak. The way that he speaks is by typing it out with his eyes on a computer and then, or I don't know the actual technology, but like on the screen, and that screen knows his voice, and so it can speak with his actual voice. But again, it's from his eyes and then hitting play.
yeah.
And he's not able to voluntarily like move on his own. But he is the most joyful person that I have ever met in my life. And it's because every time I've seen him, he's smiling.
Yeah.
Like there was an interview relatively recently and he said like I pray that I never lose my smile.
Yeah.
And it's he's truly impacted my life just from that simplicity and the realization that like we all have that ability
Hmm.
to smile.
Hmm. Yeah.
I love that advice.
Yeah. So the last thing I'll put on this, and then I'm excited to hear what yours is in this. But I was thinking about it as I'm chatting about it, but I'm like, you know, all my grandparents have passed,
Same.
and I look back and I had a great time with them. I definitely wish I asked them more questions.
Hmm.
I definitely wish I like sat there and just like, hey, what was it like during the Great Depression?
Hmm.
What was it like during the war? Like, how'd you come back and, like integrate back into society and get a job after something like that? What was this era like? What was that era like? Like, what'd you learn in that? Like, I never asked my grandparents, like, hey, what's the best piece of advice you have for me?
Hmm.
Like they just willingly give it because grandparents, I think, are so loving, and they're also, I think, in a more peaceful state because they're like, I already raised the kids, so
Yeah.
now I get to just kind of be cool
Hmm.
and fun and give this wisdom and advice. And I think everyone could probably say that of like, man, looking back, I wish I spent more time with them or asked them more questions. And I would just say that if you still do have them, and by that I mean their presence
Hmm.
here on Earth, like they're still on Earth with us. Um, get breakfast with them,
Hmm.
like get lunch, get dinner. Go to that 3 o'clock special,
Yeah.
like senior special, whatever it is, and just ask questions and listen.
Hmm.
All the wisdom may not be beneficial, but some of it's going to be.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I remember before my papa passed away, I like went over to his place and I felt similarly. Like I would call him all the time, but he couldn't hear well.
yeah,
And he like you would walk into the house and the volume would be up to 100 on the TV and he wouldn't turn the volume down, he would just mute it. And then if you stopped talking for like 5 seconds, the TV was back on
Yeah.
type of thing. And so my aunt would wear like headphones,
Mhm.
noise canceling headphones to block out the sound of the TV. That's how loud it was.
Mhm.
But he was just so awesome. And I remember one time asking him different questions about if he ever got to travel. And I knew like he didn't have a high school diploma and he worked like in a shop or as a janitor and stuff like that. And I learned so much about him just by asking little questions like that that kind of felt uncomfortable at first, right? Like if you don't have those conversations with your grandparents or even your parents as they're getting older, um, if you've never really had those conversations before,
Yeah.
there's a little like friction and uncomfortability about it.
Yeah.
But having done it, I think that like the grandparents or even the parents would be so encouraged by the questions.
Oh my
And
gosh, yeah.
um like I don't know, I just having that dialogue is so I think they're so encouraged that you're asking and
Yeah.
that you want to know and that, you're not just sitting there watching TV, but you want to have the dialogue anyways.
Right. Right.
Sometimes you'll hear pretty funny stories.
My gosh, yeah. And I like on the other side of that, I've gotten a lot of these stories. When I first was working clinically and having some older athletes, they were very willing to share stories and advice and wisdom that their grandkids or kids weren't taking.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, an open ear that's willing to take some of my advice. So I got like all of it. And again, some of it was great. Other were just hilarious. Other parts were just like, oh, we're just in a completely different era. Like
Yeah.
you just can't say that anymore.
Right.
Like that's just a no-go.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so what's the best piece of advice
Uh,
that you've ever gotten?
so I had one and I still want to share it
Mm,
because I think okay, here's the thing. When you shared yours, I was like, dang, Dylan's is so good because his is like impacting other people.
mm.
Where mine, both of the things that I kind of kept pondering were more so about me and how they've impacted my life.
So pause, because
Not
this is important for the listeners to hear. Is it important that the advice serves you so that you're able to serve others?
100%. And I know that, but
Yes.
it just got me pondering that part of it too. Of
Yeah.
like Dylan's is yours was just so good out
Yeah.
there, but mine is that foundation is like these things really changed me and
Mm.
my life has been different because of it so that I can better serve
Yeah.
others.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And the listeners should know.
Okay. Well, I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell them anyways. I just wanted to pre-frame it. So the one that came up as you were talking, I'm gonna start with that one. Only because it wasn't necessarily like one person, but it was a spirit in which I was raised, but then I really believe God gave me like people in my life that have just like empowered this in me. And
Mm.
so both of my parents and then just like my youth minister growing up and people since moving to Syracuse and things like that. I think that the best piece of advice that I've been given, even if they haven't used the words necessarily, and some have, maybe some haven't, but just like the way that they've treated me, is that you don't need to stay where you were if God is calling you to something greater. And
Mm.
like you can really spread your wings and fly in pursuit of the mission that God has called you on.
Mhm.
And I'm very thankful for that because and Dylan knows this, but like growing up in a small town, you kind of get this idea that you don't leave that town.
Yeah.
And, my dad has lived in the same house. He's lived basically on the same block his entire life,
Right.
over 70 years. Maybe for like less than a year, he lived 5 minutes down the road, but like
Right.
he's lived on the same street block for that long. And
Right.
so and for some people, I think that that's what God does call them to.
Hmm.
But for me, I don't think that was ever my destiny.
Yeah.
But my dad always told me to spread my wings and fly. My mom always told me like go see the world, go experience the world, go do like you don't have to stay here.
Hmm.
My youth minister saw something in me that like was made for more. You know what I mean? And so all that summed up, like you don't have to settle for something smaller. You can
Yeah.
go for that big thing, and the sky is truly the limit when God is calling you to that. So that advice and that igniting and drive that I have felt literally since I was less than 10 years old, like I've really felt that like fire within me
Mm,
has carried me in seasons of like doubt or wanting to give up or struggles, and so I would say that that advice, it wasn't just one piece of advice, but it was like a spirit in which someone, multiple people kind of like empowered
right.
in my life.
Oh, I love that. And sometimes it does take coming from different people saying the same thing in different ways that gets you to take hold
Yeah.
of it. And I want to throw a piece in here, and I don't want to say nervous, but I don't want to. Maybe it will lead into your second point.
Okay.
Maybe it will not. But I think it's funny because so many times we get the that advice of like go to where your calling is and spread your wings and fly. And I want to touch on that point of the flying part because the past what like 4 or 5 months we've watched a family of geese grow up,
Yeah.
and they started from little, what do you call them, geeslings? I don't know what the
Uh,
baby of a
Baby
version of
goose.
baby goose. Yeah, but we watched them grow up, and partly because they just won't stay out of the yard, they just keep coming in and eating and pooping everywhere.
Hmm.
But they, grew from these little things that could only walk, and now they're at the point where they're like starting to fly.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of hysterical watching them in flight school, like with their parents and then with the other geese in their geese community, because they'll go up into like a flying V on one side of the pond and then land on the other side of the pond. And since they were little, there's always this one little goose that always gets lost and confused, and its siblings have to come and save it,
He was always like falling
always
behind.
falling behind. And I'd love to say that he's been the best flyer in the front of the flying V. No, he's tailed off. He's the one messing up the V.
Yeah.
Like he lands and barely lands in the pond. He's like kind of on the grass in the pond. He's just not figuring it
He's
out.
struggling.
He's struggling. But watching them go through flight school, because I think it's so nice and it's empowering when we hear like spread your wings and fly, but we forget about the flight school phase. That
Hmm.
that you take some bumps and bruises, but you know that it's worth it because of that end goal that you're gonna get to.
Hmm.
And so I think like people continuously give you that advice to remind you that when you're in flight school,
Hmm.
when you're figuring it out and you're taking some bumps and bruises, that you keep going. And I think oftentimes that's when we start getting advice from different people saying the same things, is
Hmm.
that reminder of like, hey, you're on the right path.
Yeah.
Like this is part of it. And the only reason I say this is because I think there's a lot of thought leaders, motivational speakers that are like, get out there and do it, follow your dreams.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so I'm gonna start it tomorrow and it's gonna be successful
Yeah.
and it's all gonna be there. And it's like, no,
No, it's
no.
a process. And
Yeah.
and I think that that's why I wanted to share it is because like I said, I remember being in third grade and feeling this like drive
Yeah.
to change the world and
Mhm.
to like have my life impact more people's lives.
Yeah.
But that was in third grade. Like
Right.
I was just a little baby.
Yeah.
But having that like spark ignited within me has carried me throughout my flight school. My flight
Wow.
school wasn't until I was in element or middle school or high school or college or even like my young adult years. It's been like one step, one day after a time, one year after a time, growing and growing and growing. And
Wow.
I'd like to think I don't want to say I'd like to think like I know that I'm living the mission that God has made for me.
Hmm.
And there was a time where I was in something that was very seasonal, but it was a multiple year season. And I think that that could have been like, oh, maybe this is the mission. But it was actually another stepping block. It was almost like that graduation of flight school
Yeah.
to like get into this mission that God has called us, which is very clear. And, we're very fortunate that the mission that God has called us on is together
Yeah.
as husband and wife and within our work. And I know not everybody gets that, and that's okay because God has a plan for each and every one of us individually. But it's just it's just so clear that he always intended this for both of us and in the paths that we have been on since we were little kids and the way that they've come together.
Yeah, I'm just impressed that third grade you were on that path of wanting to change the world. I
Yeah,
think in
no,
third grade I was trying to figure out how I could be in the NFL and LB and NBA all at the same time.
fair. I mean, I definitely had like it wasn't changing the world in the way that we're trying to change it now, but it was I I just knew that people needed an example in the public eye of someone who was living a life for the Lord.
Mm,
In third grade, I knew that and I wanted to be that.
yeah, and you're
But
doing
like
it.
but like I wanted to be like Hannah Montana while doing that. Like I wanted to be on Disney Channel, but like for Jesus,
Right,
you know?
right. Oh, that is incredible. So what's the second?
Yeah, so the second piece of advice, very simply put, is the way you think about yourself and the way that you think about your body is the result in which is going to happen,
Mm,
which is what you told me.
hmm
Like when I first met you, like I had no idea that my thoughts were that powerful. And I didn't know that and not to say that the pain and the injury that I have gone through and when I had complex regional pain syndrome, not to say that that was all in my head and it was
Right.
all only thoughts. Like there's a lot to it. But realizing that like I can have self-agency and take control of my thoughts
Mhm.
and that my body over time would listen to that is just changed my life,
Yeah,
very simply put. So thanks for
yeah,
telling me that.
yeah. You're welcome. And now we're on to teaching our nephews that you do not have bad knees. Stop
Yeah.
saying you have bad knees.
You're 15 years old. Yeah. But in all seriousness, like I was the person in my teens and in my 20s saying, "Oh, my bad foot, my bad back. I'm
Hmm.
always going to be in pain.
Yeah,
I got this wrong with me. This is popping in and out of place." And it's like, stop. Like your body is hearing all of that and it's going if you keep telling it it's bad, it's going to respond like that. And so getting to change that and transform that from like man, my foot is the worst to I love my foot. It's great. It's strong. It's resilient. And at first, it started with me saying it and not really believing it,
right.
but believing that maybe it could make a change
Yeah,
eventually.
yeah,
And it did. And I'm great, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. And I think there's so many stories you can look at too with like pro athletes and them having self-doubt, which we all have. We all have some self-doubt at some point. And I don't think we're born with that. I
Mm,
think that's just part of the construct of the world that we live in society
yeah.
that you just learn to start doubting yourself. But these athletes, when did they reach the pinnacle? Well, when they stopped doubting
Yeah.
themselves, when they still had humility, not ego, but were confident
Hmm.
in who they are and what they're doing. And that's where like big changes can be made.
Yeah, for sure.
That's flying.
That's flying.
That's flying right there.
Spread your wings and fly.
Well, we will wrap up, and we are just so thankful
Yeah.
for the 100th episode.
100, baby.
100, triple digits from here on out.
I loved this episode. I know that it was a compilation of the two advice that I had and the one advice that you had, but I feel like in the midst of that, we offered a lot more wisdom and perspective, and maybe your takeaway from this episode is something that not necessarily one of our top advice, but something else that you heard that sparked something in your brain or made you curious about whatever.
Mhm.
And I just hope that you had a great takeaway from this episode and that our future episodes can continue to serve our listeners and bless all of you, and that you can share it with others so that more people can be blessed
Mm. I feel like the episode was a hope story
in and of
in
itself.
and of itself.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you for listening. Thank you. If you have listened from episode 0 to 100,
Zero. There is no episode zero.
episode 1 to 100, thanks, Mom.
Yeah. Shout out to mom.
Shout out to Mom. Let us know. so that we can send you a special gift of just saying thank you for being with us from episode 1
Yes.
to episode 100 and
100.
many more that'll be coming.
Yeah.
So thank you. Have a great week. And remember, every day is not just a day to be hopeful, but an opportunity to become hope.
The Hope Not Know podcast is meant for educational, informational, and personal development purposes only and does not constitute any health or medical advice. If you're looking for specific advice, connect with us to work with a Hope coach. The Hope Not Know podcast shall not be liable or responsible for any loss or damage allegedly arising from any information or suggestions in this podcast.